All right, and with that, let's turn the floor over to Ryan. Ryan teaches at the NYC Lab School.
Yeah, hi, thanks for having me to do this, and thanks just for keeping the Academy going virtually. I think these have been really awesome moments of connection, so I really appreciate that. I guess I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit today about kind of how I've restructured like the overall picture of my classroom. I think, once we started seeing the writing on the walls that this was going to be the rest of the year, and there was no way we were going to be able to finish our curriculums, and there was no way the regents were happening. I think like all of those things are the kind of things we hang our hat on throughout the year. Like, yeah, I covered all the content, or like I prepped my kids for the regent. So myself and the rest of the science teachers in my school kind of sat down and had this big conversation of like, what's the point now? And secondly, and this kind of brings me back to the first Academy workshop I ever did, which was the stories that scientists tell with Christian Rojas. I remember when at the end during his Q&A session, when he was asked, as a college professor, what do you want your students to come into your class with from high school? Like what kind of content do you want focused on? And he said, don't worry about the content. He said, the most important thing is that kids can come in with good study habits, with scientific literacy, with mathematical literacy, and we'll teach the content. And so our second big thing we want to make sure we pushed our kids to do is to build in these skills of self-motivation, working kind of at their own pace, and those kinds of things. So that's kind of what's guided us. And then the third thing that came from our administration, kind of like what Sylvia was talking about a little bit before, we were told to like tone it way back. And we were kind of put a limit on each class would only be able to assign 100 minutes of work per week outside of like in-person sessions. And so those are the three things that kind of guided what we're doing. And is it cool, Rachel, if I share my screen to show? That's cool. So at the beginning of the week, all of my students get a PowerPoint that looks like this, posted at the front page of Google Classroom. And so it's just the week at a glance, what's going on. This is from the week of the 20th of last month. And so it opens up on the big idea, like what's the concept that we're covering that week. And then we have a weekly learning target. So we've kind of stretched it out where you would have daily learning targets. We have like a weekly one that stretches out. This one was describing the parts of a solution, and colligative properties basically was what we wanted our kids to know by the time they were done with this week. We highlight some vocabulary that they might want to keep an eye out for, things that'll be defined in lessons or activities that they do. And then we kind of go through what their actual week is going to look like. So every week looks the same. We've kind of built in this consistency so students know what to expect. And everything is asynchronous, kind of building into that, like working at your own pace. So the first there's always two modules. That's where the content acquisition is. This week, they both happen to be EdPuzzles, but they can look a variety of different ways. Here's one from the week that came after that was more text-based, talking about the colligative property of adding salt to the ice and talking about how that influences the freezing point of ice. The second option for the activity they could do that week was an experiment that we set up for how they can see how the amount of salt dissolved in water will change its boiling point. And so they could work their way through that experiment. That's something we would have probably done if we were all together, but we kind of modified it so they would have the materials at home. And our third option, and we always have an option for this, is some kind of computer simulation. And there's lots of really good resources out. The one we've been relying on most is CK12. They have a lot of really good simulations like this one. So if students, because we felt like, all right, we have these really cool like kitchen experiments that these students could do, but if they don't have the materials, we can't tell them like, hey, go to the grocery store and get these materials. Like we were trying to work with like, what if students didn't have these resources? And so this website came up as a really awesome way of going through. And this is just a short simulation about why we salt the roads when it snows, which all three things cover the exact same concepts of colligative properties, which they learned in the two modules. And so it kind of is our way of assessing those concepts, but at the same time, connecting it to what's real and what's around them. Yeah, And then, oh, that was the other thing. So this is all the asynchronous work. So like I said, we were limited to 100 minutes of asynchronous work a week on top of in-person sessions. So our in-person sessions, and there's 3 chemistry teachers. There's myself and my co-teacher, because we have all of the special education classes, the ICT sites, and then the general education teacher, Ms. Price, also teaches several sessions. So between the three of us, there are 6 sessions in total that students can visit, and each one has a theme. So basically, everything is assigned on Monday. Students can take a look at what they have. These are recorded. So the Tuesday session, we talked about the first EdPuzzle. We kind of worked through the guided note sheets on that. Wednesday, we did the same for the second, and Thursday, we talked about the activity. So in this way, we try to match their asynchronous work to opportunities for support during our virtual, we call them office hours, but they're kind of like our actual lessons for the week. And then there's always some kind of meme at the end, because that's just good stuff. I think that's my 8 minutes, Renee.
Excellent. Other questions? Emily, go ahead.
Sorry, muted. Thank you, Ryan. That was really awesome. I feel like the topics that you've had so far are ones that I think are really sort of lend themselves well to kids discovering at home. Like colligative properties is so perfect because like they can sort of see. So are you running into any topics from these last 8 weeks of been doing this, or that you anticipate doing in these next 8 weeks that you think will be harder to do at home, or have you been able to really find stuff? That's what I feel like is the hardest part about this. Is
yeah,
that
so
just
sorry,
don't lend themselves to it.
So far, we're like 4 for 4 on like good week. This week's activity, we kind of debuted chemical reactions, and so we asked them to like come up with like a family recipe and like put it into the formula of what a chemical equation would look like. And so we're making our like chemistry cookbook from that. Next week, yeah, I think that we're gonna run into some trouble down the stretch, but I think we might fall back more onto the simulations when that happens, just because there's so many good resources there. So hopefully not, but like probably, yeah.
Pedro, go ahead.
A couple of questions. Do you have like office hours in the students they can reach you and one-on-one, or you have like a class meeting, maybe Google Meet, other platforms in which you group students and present the content that is new to them? You have these 2 kind of options for them?
Yeah, so when we post our office hours schedule, and between the 3 chemistry teachers, there's 6 different 45-minute sessions that they can visit to get kind of help and support. But then we also will absolutely arrange like one-on-1 or 1-on-3 in small group kind of things, just to like track the students down that aren't taking the initiative to come to one of our office hours.
Excellent. Alice.
Hi, I'm just wondering, you have your learning targets. How do students know they're meeting their learning targets?
Ultimately, that kind of relies on how well we formulate their activity and like the reflection questions that go into that. So it's the formative assessment that kind of ties in with whatever the modules are, whether that be like we've done some Google Forms that they'll kind of check in with, and they'll get feedback there, or that's just us looking at the activities for the week and saying like, okay, here's where you missed out on what we were hoping you would get to, and kind of address that with them individually. Feedback has definitely been the biggest struggle point for us. Absolutely, this whole process. So we're definitely still a work in progress there. Yeah, that's where we're at so far.
Thank you.
Excellent. And with that, let's turn the floor over to our second presenter. Emily Hart teaches at KIPP NYC College Prep High School. Emily.
Hi, everyone. Okay, I'm going to attempt to share my screen. I just got a monitor, so I'm going to try and make this happen where I can still see you guys, and maybe you can see my screen. So do you see a presentation? Amazing. Okay, I can also see your faces. This is awesome. So before I begin, just so I know what you guys already know, can everybody just give me like a raise of hand if you've used EdPuzzle before? Okay, so a lot of us. And has anyone ever used Explain Everything before? Sylvia, Ryan. Okay, so I'm gonna walk kind of quickly through this. So if you do want to talk to me about it in more detail, or I am more than happy to like FaceTime any of you and like literally walk you through things, just know that I'm gonna go pretty fast as I'm going through here. So I'm gonna talk about 3 things that I'm using in my classroom. EdPuzzle, and the videos are coming from Explain Everything, Phet simulations, and then Quiz Is. Those are some of the things that I'm using in my classroom. And here we go. All right, so first thing, I sort of like what Ryan has been discussing, I've been assigning videos to my students. And as much as possible, I will try and find them online, but sometimes I just don't find what I'm looking for, or I notice that my students respond a lot better when they're hearing my voice or seeing my face than when they're hearing someone else's, which is quite annoying. But essentially you can make videos that I start with a PowerPoint presentation, and essentially you can add in files. So I add in the files from my Dropbox. And so for example, this was my Zoom meeting with my students last week. And then I basically can either use this sort of as a whiteboard if I'm doing a live Zoom, or if I'm doing it as a video, you can press this record button. It'll record your voice and whatever you're drawing, and then eventually save it as a video file. So you can see that it gets pretty clear drawing, and I can either pause the video and do the drawing, or I can sort of have the video going as I'm drawing. So once I make these videos, how do I make sure my kids are actually watching them? If you haven't used EdPuzzle yet, it is my absolute favorite ed tech tool. I am obsessed with it. The people that designed it are also phenomenal, and they respond to your emails really quickly. So if you're having any issues, like I just want everyone in the world to support them, because I think they're doing great things for all of us. So essentially, EdPuzzle, if you don't know already, you can take any video that you find on YouTube or anything online, or a video that you make yourself, and you have the ability to cut it. So cut out the beginning or the end if you don't like it, do voiceovers, and then the best part is you get to add in check for understanding questions. So it's super easy to use. The uploading happens really quickly. It generates really awesome student reports, so you can analyze your data of how your students are doing on the videos. You can share these lessons with your colleagues, so I'm happy to share any of my videos with the rest of you, and you can share them with each other. And the best part is that it is free. They do have a paid version that allows you to have more videos, but right now it's free for everything, so we don't need to worry about the paid part yet. So just a quick recap, and again, I'm gonna go fast. If you wanna walk through it further with me, I'm happy to talk to you one-on-one. But it syncs perfectly with Google Classroom, so I just upload my classes and my students in there. Again, you can search online or upload your own videos. So this is one of my coworkers. You can get linked with your coworkers if you work with people in the same school. Then there are a couple different editing options. So a lot of times at the beginning of videos that I find online, they go through these long introductions. I don't want to waste my kids' time, so I cut the beginning a lot. If you find a simulation video in chemistry that you want to be able to walk through the explanations yourself, you can record your own audio track over the entire video. And then my favorite part is that you can start to add in actual notes within the video itself. So you can add in multiple choice questions that will self-grade, or you can add in open response questions that are really easy for you to quickly go down the line and grade each student. You can also write them written feedback, which they get notified about. So I love these features and cannot recommend it enough. Okay, that was supposed to come up with cool pictures, but that didn't happen. Okay, so you're gonna assign your students really easily. It's an example of a video I assigned to my AP chemistry class where I had them answer free response questions. So I click this blue button and it allowed me to grade their work. I can see specifically how much credit they earned on the video, and also how many times they watched it. So this student watched it once all the way through, but I sometimes have students that rewatch certain sections, and that tells me that maybe I need to explain it further, or that they're a little bit confused. It also tells me when they turn it in. And then if you prefer to get it exported to Excel, you can also export all the grades to Excel. And then this is the interface where you actually grade their free response. So X or check, and then you can leave them comments here. So that was a really fast introduction on Explain Everything and EdPuzzle. Love using them to provide instruction for my students and also assess their understanding. For my Regents chemistry class, I've done a couple of Phet simulations because I really love, like Ryan was saying, any opportunity to get kids to see a simulation is really great. So for example, this past Monday, their assignment was about concentration solutions. So maybe a lot of us are on this topic right now. It started with a bit of a literacy component, so they're reading about solutions and the different components, and then it moves into them doing the simulation. So basically, I made a Google Doc. I just did a Word doc, but then I uploaded it into the Google Classroom. And essentially, the kids are going to be filling in their answers on this document, and then submitting it to Google Classroom, but they're using the simulation to be able to answer these questions. So I highlight the questions that they need to answer. So if you haven't done this yet, if you use Google Classroom, which again, I highly recommend, you just want to make sure that in the assignment, you have students each will get a copy, because then it generates its own Google Doc on each kid's account. And so when they start to edit it, it doesn't edit it for the entire class. So the tricky thing about this, I have found online learning to be way more work than in person, because giving feedback for every kid requires a lot of time when you do it this way. However, I think it's extremely helpful, and kids are actually learning if you can actually type in the Google Doc comments that you have and things like that. Last thing I want to just quick plug, if you haven't used quizzes, it's a really fun way to assess kids' knowledge. It kind of feels like a computer game to them. They have like opportunities for power-ups and bonus points, and it's a competition, so they can see how they're doing versus their classmates. I have made a ton of quizzes for both Regents and AP Chemistry. Again, happy to share those with the group. And if you're interested in learning more, I would suggest that you just play around on the website. That was my very quick recap for you all.
One of the issues I have is how you cope with having so much information in Google Classroom, so much assignments.
You mean for the
and they're open, even though you said, for example, you love to have the deadlines, that how you work with deadlines when they're allowed to complete the work anytime. So basically, students can work on different assignments and you are not aware of unless they click on turn the document, right? So how you handle that? What is the strategy? It's like being more strict about the deadlines, checking the assignments every day. Is any strategy out there to cope with that kind of, it's time consuming, right? Yeah. You have to go over all the assignments and check if anybody has added anything new to their work. So any strategies?
Well, I tell my students on Google Classroom, I tell my students not to submit until they finish the assignment. So I can tell if a kid, didn't do it, and then 3 days later did do it, it'll come up as something that I need to grade. So I would suggest that you definitely tell your kids to do that. And then I will usually grade it, and then I'll return it to the kid. If they didn't get full credit because they maybe only finished half of it, then a kid could, again, resubmit it to me to be able to get it graded again. I love Google Classroom for that reason. It's the ability to get things submitted or return them, they say, to the students. But yeah, I mean, deadlines, I told my kids in the beginning, the reason why these deadlines exist is to help you prioritize your time and structure your time. I've had lots of one-on-one phone calls with my students where I help them make a schedule for their day, because I think that's a really important life lesson that a lot of the kids are being forced to learn now instead of their freshman year of college. So I've had many kids open a Google Doc with me. We're both on it. We set a time. Here's what you're going to wake up by. Here's when you're going to do chemistry. Here's when you're going to do pre-calc, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's really helpful for a lot of our kids to give them some routine and some structure.
Yeah, go ahead, Wendy.
How long does it take you to do, I guess, the explain everything to the EdPuzzle for, I don't know, how long does that unit that you kind of whiz through last for a student?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you all, I do not think we're going to have a regular school year next year at all. And so every time I make one of these videos, I just say to myself, now I won't ever have to make this for the rest of my career. This is my video. So I think that all this time that we're spending making these really good quality online videos or PowerPoints or I think it's going to be useful for our lives in the future.
Quick question on this. What's the learning curve on all of this? As far as I've never used technology until we were out. First time using Google Classroom. Horrible at PowerPoint. Trying to figure out how to deal with all of this is so overwhelming. Like when I logged on, I said I couldn't even figure out how to use the stylus on a Chromebook. So old school here. How long is it going to take me to try to figure all this out?
I'll just say you're a superhero. We are all superheroes. We are all being asked to do unbelievable things that we were not prepared to do. So go us. But Wendy, I would say if you have an iPad, making videos is much easier than on a Chromebook. So do you want to add to that?
No, we don't have iPads. We were just given Chromebooks. They don't even, as I just figured out, they don't even flip over. So I don't even know what the heck is the next step on this thing. There's only one technology person. So the question was, do I, again, use the Chromebook and try to figure it out, or just go buy an iPad? Because like you said, I don't believe we're going back in the fall.
If you have the resources, I would highly recommend purchasing an iPad. I've been using it nonstop to make videos.
Thank you for the suggestion on that, because
Sorry.
no, it's fine. I just can't believe we're going to go back.
Yeah, Sylvia, you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of add to the suggestion. EdPuzzle already has so many videos on there with so many teachers that have already embedded questions. So I think if you're really sort of struggling with technology, the first thing I would try to do is go on EdPuzzle and find videos rather than try to like figure out how to make your own and things like that. And I think that would be the first place to start. And you'll see it's actually a lot easier and very user-friendly with Google Classroom, which would be a relief, even though I know you said that was new to you as well. But they communicate really well, and I'm not very tech savvy, and it's like a godsend.
That's excellent. Yes, Danielle, you wanted to add something as well, and I'm going to, yeah, you're good.
Okay, so I use EdPuzzle grades itself. So if you're doing multiple choice questions or whatever, it automatically grades. It automatically uploads the grades to Google Classroom for you. And so it's a very great tool. We actually have the Pro for my school. My school actually decided to do Pro. And so when you copy your video, it automatically becomes part of your account. So any video that's out there, it is very great thing to use. And so I enjoyed EdPuzzle. But my question to you was about explain everything. That's something new. I've never heard of that. So give me a little bit more information about explain everything.
Have you heard of Screencastify?
No.
Okay, it seems like, well, among my friends in education, it seems like a lot of schools are using Screencastify. I don't know if anyone else's school has gotten a subscription to that, but basically, Danielle, it's just a way to make videos. Screencastify seems like it's really good for English or history teachers because it basically just takes a recording of your screen. So it's more, I think, and maybe someone else here has more knowledge of that one, but I think it's more just like if you want to talk at your computer basically and have it recording your voice, and you can have a little video of you in the corner. I like Explain Everything because of it has really good ability with the stylus for writing, and it has a lot of features of things that you can add into your video. So I really like that platform. It's free for like a very limited number of things. I got it so long ago that I got grandfathered in. So I think there's a small fee now per month. But basically I'm just suggesting if you're thinking about making videos, other applications are Show Me. I know I've heard of Screencast-O-Matic. I've just found the best one to be Explain Everything. I've used that for the last 5 years.
Thank you.
Great. And with that, let's turn the floor over to our third presenter. Ben DiNardo teaches at the Birch Wathen Lennox School. Go for it, Ben.
Thank you. Hi. I'm going to show you what we've been doing or what I've been doing, but some of it is stuff that Ryan did, so I'm going to claim that he stole my thunder. But the reality is that so I teach at a small private school, and so we've been using Zoom. So this sort of interface has been pretty familiar. I have sort of an advantage in some ways in that, you know, the kids have some technology that's available, so that seems to be helpful. What I've been doing, Google folder with all the stuff that we're using. So the nice thing about this is we also use PowerSchool, so we're putting stuff on PowerSchool, but it's also in Google so people can get it. I've tried to make either a weekly, or this is actually a slideshow for the next 2 weeks that covers the material, has the assignments in it from the textbook, and then other things that I'm going to try to go through. I rely a lot on humor, so I've tried to put funny things in there too. One of the things that I've been doing a lot of, people talking about how much work there is involved, is I've really been trying to, because I'm not seeing my kids as much as I would, you know, not even every day, doing a lot more, you know, asynchronous learning, where when they have a homework assignment, you know, like that, they have, in theory, a week, or if they're doing ones that were, you know, assigned a week ago, but are due this week, you know, they may have 2 weeks to work on it. So I've been trying to do a lot of look at their assignments, tell them what's wrong, have them redo it, or if, you know, if it's right, then just tell them, yeah, this is great, but trying to really go through that process. to make up for that, you know, that synchronous learning, that time when we would have been together. But as someone said, I mean, it's a ton of extra work. The other thing is that I'm getting assignments shared with me through Google, sent to email, on PowerSchool. So it is a lot of looking at things, but to me, we haven't been doing as much in the classroom. So I feel like that's where I've been making things up. The other thing that I've tried, so that's, okay, I want to not skip things. I'm making a checklist for myself. One of the things that I've been doing to try to sort of assess what they know, because, you know, as much as I would love to believe all my kids are super honest and are, you know, never working with each other and know everything that's going on, you know, the reality is that if you give them a question, they can Google it and get an answer. You know, textbooks have answers in the back. There's, you know, that website that's like has the answer to every textbook question. So, you know, I don't know whether you consider that cheating or not. You know, in some ways I don't care as long as they're learning how they're getting it. But, you know, the fear is if you're just copying, they're not. So one of the things I've been trying to do are these, I'm calling them take-home tests, because it would be like what you'd give if you gave a take-home test, although they're just taking it at home, where I give them, well, I should give you the first part. I give them this thing where they have to write 3 of their own problems and then answer them. And of course, the caveat is that no kid can turn in the same 3 questions. Therefore, at least in theory, they're all doing their own work to some extent. So this is one of the things that I've been doing in terms of just trying to really get an idea on what they know. I just have slides where I ask them what to read. Usually I'll give some quick notes on stuff that we're reading. Once again, I try to make things funny. I think it's funny because I'm taking a long time writing these things. And if they're not funny, I just want to kill myself. And then, so I go into some things. I may do an example, show the example, which is, I'll tell you what, doing some of this in Google is a pain because Google stinks, if you ask me, but that's a different story for a different time. And then I'll practice problems. What I wanted to get to, that's another little joke there too, is the other thing that I've been doing is virtual laboratory experiments. And this is one of the other things that takes a while. I was trying to do some more simulations, but there were some things that I couldn't really find that I really wanted. So like one's for Graham's Law. So what I found instead was, I'm not gonna show you this whole video, but wow, that's really loud. So here's a guy doing this experiment and he's showing that they react, and I just wanna show right here. Okay, hold on. So you can see this. This is the exact same experiment we would do in class. Now, some years we get terrible results, which I can't explain, but this one, boom, you can see where the little white line is forming there, and they put a ruler up there so the kids can actually measure it. So what I've had the kids do is they're doing this, they're hopefully doing the measuring, and then I give them some results, what I'm looking for in terms of the actual experiment. So then, you know, I make some more comments, I tell them where to get stuff, and then I describe what I want for the experiment in terms of calculations and analysis and things like that. So those are the things that I've been working on. I don't know if they've been working. I think for some students, they've been really good. The other thing, and I'll say this too, the other thing I do with labs, so theoretically, they knew about this lab 2 weeks ago. Usually, you know, we do an experiment, talk about it, and then they have a week to write the report. So theoretically, now they maybe have even more time to do them. But one of the things that I do is I let them do drafts. So I've been grading a ton of drafts as well, to the point where at one point I like had a due date and I'm like, I'm not gonna get through all these drafts. I'll just give you another few days. But to me, I feel like if they get the idea of how to write, I don't know, writing is really important to me. If they get that idea of revising as like, this isn't even a lab report skill, this is a life skill. Like you have to write, you have to be able to write clearly. When you're writing something really important, you don't do it once and then turn it in. You take a long time, you let someone else look at it. So it's been a lot of work for me, but I've you know.
I just want to say, chemistry is the most mysterious of all things to me. Trained as a historian, it is the one thing I just don't get. But I'm super glad to see, I feel like we all understand what students, the stresses that students are under right now. And I'm delighted to see humor in these lessons, because it seems to me such a good way of recognizing that there is something fundamentally absurd about the exercise of trying to communicate effectively with students across these digital divides. So I would just like to say, I think that's terrific. I'm dying to know how your jokes land. and if you hear anything about them. But it seems to me a great strategy for, they know because it's you that as they keep going, they're going to find little jokes coming down the pike.
Well, if you actually want to respond to that, I think mostly I get things, there's probably a lot of eye rolling and groaning and a lot of like, yeah, that's a kind of a joke a dad would tell. And, I am a dad, so I'm like, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. But I mean, at the same time, they're, with mainly sophomores, so 16-year-olds. So that's kind of what I expect no matter what I do. So if it breaks the monotony for them a little, good. And like I said, even if it doesn't, it breaks it for me. And that's really all that matters. I don't care about them at all. But I think Danielle?
Yeah, Danielle.
I just have a question. I'm realizing we all in different places in our chemistry. In my school, we're basically at organic chemistry and have one more unit left in nuclear chemistry. But I was wondering, where was everybody at this moment in their chemistry lessons? I mean, technically we were at organic chemistry and then Regents exam, but Regents exams have been canceled. So now that's where we are. But I'm just wondering, where is everybody at in general right now with their courses?
So being at a private school, I don't have a Regents exam that I have to teach to. So, I generally kind of follow along in the textbook.
This is the last few minutes of our time together. And I wonder if anyone would either like to share something that came up in your small group that you think is either a good resource or just a really good point that you'd like to make sure everybody else knows about, or whether you still have a question that you'd like to pose to the group. Oh, yes. Ilana, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. It's Alona, but that's okay.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. So one of the things that I've been using in my class is Flynn Scientific right now is actually having live lab sessions where they have a scientist and you get all of his data and they could go through and follow along as he's doing the lab demonstration in front of the students. I noticed a lot of my students really responded to it and loved it because I didn't want to be doing these experiments kind of like they're in a class. They could literally be with this scientist working through the experiment, ask them questions in real time. They feel like they're in a real class doing a real lab. And then if for whatever reason they can't make it, those lab sessions are recorded. And then at a later point, you could go through. And everything's open to you. Teachers get like an answer key and you could assign it also as a grade. So somebody just posted. Yeah, so somebody just posted it in the chat. Thank you, Renee. The Flynn Scientific at Home lab series. I think it was really, really helpful and the students are super engaged and they feel like they're still in class even though it's kind of a hectic time.
Wonderful. Well, we encourage you as you are continuing to develop resources to consider posting them on the folder that we gave you when Sam initially wrote you, and that will be in the evaluation for this session. And so with that, what I would like to do is to thank our three presenters for their wonderful presentations today. It's so exciting for me to see what people are doing and how creative you are with these really unfortunate circumstances. And so we really appreciate that. And I want to thank everyone for being here. It's wonderful to see you all and to know that you are doing as well as can be expected under the circumstances.